In this video, I'm going to be putting up this large gate. It's a 16-foot span with two 8-foot sections that both swing open. In a prior video, I already made the frames, and this video is going to show me putting in the posts, putting up the frames, and putting on the trim and pickets and making it look all nice and pretty. And as you can see, I start out with some pretty large and deep holes for the 6x6 posts. And that's going to provide a really good anchor for the posts to keep them from leaning over under the load of the gates. Now when I got the 6x6 posts, the corners were pretty sharp and I wanted a rounder corner on it. So I took a router and rounded the edges. And once I got that done, I wanted a nice looking concrete base because I wanted the concrete to stick out a little bit above the ground. And I wanted it to look nice too. That hole is pretty big and ugly. So I took some forms and cut them on the saw. And I didn't cut the forms the complete depth of the hole. I just cut them deep enough to cover up the widened out area from where I was digging out the old posts. Further on down, the hole was more round and more suited to the size that it was supposed to be. And so I stuck in the form and I made sure that it was positioned the way that I wanted it. And then I backfilled it with dirt. After I got that done, I poured in a little concrete in the bottom, about 6 inches of concrete, and that'll help me when I'm setting the post. It'll make the post able to stand up on its own, which is going to be real beneficial for setting these by myself. And that concrete in the bottom will also set up and cure when it gets wet from rain. And that'll provide a barrier to prevent moisture from getting to the post and rotting it out. Any moisture that gets in through the top of the post will still be able to permeate out of the concrete during dry weather. So once I got the post set in there and all leveled up, I put in some stakes to hold it in place while I set the concrete. And put in quite a bit of concrete in here. And I just worked that concrete around and get it in there. And after I got the concrete set in there, I let this cure for a few days before I hung the gate frames, because I wanted the posts and the concrete to be nice and rigid before taking any load. Now, since I'm going to be hanging these gate frames by myself and they're pretty big and cumbersome, I went ahead and attached the hardware to the post, and I used a 2x4 to just position those in place and test out the swing on them to make sure that they were lined up correctly. Now, I wanted the spacing on the gates to be even on both sides. So I wanted a certain amount of spacing between the gate frame and the posts, and then a certain amount of spacing between the gates in the center where they meet. So what I did was I nailed on some spacer boards on the ends of the gates, the ends that would meet the posts, and then also in the center, to make sure that I had the right spacing that I wanted. And then after I did that, I went and I set the gates on some wood to hold them at the right height that I wanted. I shimmed it up on one end or the other to make sure that both the gates were level and lined up with each other. And after I made sure that they were lined up and everything was positioned right, I went ahead and secured the hardware to the gate frames. So once I got the frames up and I got everything secured, I took off the spacing boards. It was time to test it out, and it works pretty good. Then I put on the additional hardware, including the latch at the top that's going to hold the gates together. Then I put some drop rods in the bottom of both of the gates that are going to secure them to the ground and keep them from moving around during wind or anything like that. I'll tell you what, setting the posts in place, these 6x6 posts, and then moving these large gate frames in place, felt like I was competing in the Highland Games or doing a strongman competition, you know. And before I put up the pickets, I put the top board here on. And since these gates are made out of 4x4s, and I want a little bit of overhang on the side with the pickets, these top trim boards are 2x6s actually, and they match the width of the 6x6 posts. So from the fence to the gate sticks out 2 inches. And then once I got those 2x6s up, I started putting up the pickets to finish off the front of the gate and make it look all nice. And these pickets are cedar pickets. So the gate was made out of pressure treated wood, and then the pickets are cedar pickets. Now after I got the pickets up, I took the skill saw and cut off the top of the posts at the height that I wanted, and I had to make several cuts because those are 6x6s, so I had to work my way around them, you know. And once I got that done, I went ahead and put on the caps, which pretty much finished off this gate. And I think it came out looking pretty nice, and it's pretty heavy duty gate for sure. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some information that you might use on your next project, and take it easy.